Welcome everybody. We are so excited to get started with a fantastic program today. We have an amazing guest speaker with us today. But first, I want to introduce you to Robin Kaplan, our Director of Aleph Home Care and Day Center, who is really the heart of Aleph in our community and everything. She started Aleph with some amazing other individuals, and here is Robin to tell you more.
Good morning, and thank you for joining Aleph's Virtual University. 8 years ago, Jen Weiss, the Jewish Federation CEO, and Donald Love, Jewish Federation board member, had a vision to provide home care to our community. The need for home care was great, and they wanted our older adult community to have a high level of care. Their vision did not stop there. They also saw the need to create an adult day center, and in January of 2020, Aleph Adult Day Center was born, and now we are introducing Aleph University. It is an honor to watch as their vision has become a reality. Aleph is a department of the Jewish Federation of Southern New Jersey and an accredited state-licensed home care agency providing personal care, companion care, transitional care nursing, and transportation services from 1 hour to 24-hour live-in care. I have been passionate about the older adult population ever since I was a little girl. I would spend endless hours with my grandparents and their friends. Their stories and wisdom intrigued me. As I watched them age, I saw firsthand how challenging the aging process can be. I also saw the difference that home care can have in the lives of so many. Home care does not only help the older adults, but provides their families with peace of mind. During the pandemic, the Aleph Home Health Aides have become the link between the client and the family. Unfortunately, families are unable to see their loved ones and are so worried about their well-being. Our aides will reassure the families by communicating over the phone or even with a FaceTime call. When a family sees their loved one for the very first time after a week, or in some cases after months, it is magical. It is my goal and priority to help older adults age in place with dignity by ensuring we care for their mind, their body, and soul, which is why we believe so strongly in Aleph University. Aleph University was created to give people an opportunity to sign up for educational programs, as well as to learn from various speakers. As we continue through the pandemic, it is so imperative that our older adults utilize their minds and have social interaction, even if it is through Zoom. For about 2 years, I had been following Karen Rogers' story about her mother's Alzheimer's diagnosis. Karen's story touched my heart. She spoke so honestly and candidly about watching her mom live with Alzheimer's. Karen was open in discussing how the disease affected her entire family. I read one of her posts on Facebook where she said, "I initially was quiet about mom's diagnosis, but it's an injustice to the caregivers and victims who feel so alone and need awareness and support." Karen showed strength to speak openly about her mother's journey with Alzheimer's. Karen is relatable and transparent. Although she was going through such a hard time watching her mom decline, she showed up each and every morning to give us the weather and traffic with a bright, smiling face. I know by sharing her story that our clients, families, and anyone in our community caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's will feel that they are not alone and they have the support needed. Karen Rogers is the weekday traffic and weather anchor for Action News Mornings and the co-host of FYI Philly. Karen graduated from Rutgers University with a degree in communications and sociology, then studied broadcast journalism in the United Kingdom as a Rotary Scholar. Karen is a meteorologist who earned her seal of approval from the American Meteorological Society. She holds a certificate in broadcast meteorology from Mississippi State University, following 3 years of studies in atmospheric sciences and geosciences. Karen was born and raised in New Jersey, along with her 9 brothers and sisters. It gives me great pleasure to welcome and to introduce Karen Rogers.
Myself. Thank you so much for that great introduction, Robin. That was so beautiful, and I appreciate your words. I'm so grateful to be here today, and so grateful for Aleph and all that they do. And we need more people like that, more organizations like that, to help us through this. I'm tearing up as you said this. I was drinking a cup of water and realized my hand was shaking. It's not that it's easy for me to talk about such personal things, but like you said, I just think it's so important. So I thought I would just share some of my mom's story and my story with her, and then answer questions out there for anybody and for you who have them. As you mentioned, COVID, I mean, I didn't have to go through this during COVID. It was prior, and I can't imagine how incredibly difficult it is for everybody out there. It's my experience times 10. So I hope that in some small way this can help, or we can all kind of learn from each other a little bit. My mom was diagnosed about 10 years ago, but even before that, I think she had Alzheimer's. I'm sure she did, in fact, and we just took a little time getting to wrap our brain around it, maybe getting out of a little bit of denial, as I think a lot of people experience, right? And that's when she was officially diagnosed. I remember going on a trip with my mom and my dad, and traveling with her was really difficult. And let me know if you have any trouble or can't hear me. I know it's a little hard. And my dad used to cover for my mom a lot. He would tell us, oh, things are fine, things are fine. But on that trip, he broke down and said to us that when my mom wakes up in the morning or wakes up from a nap, she asked for her mom who had died, before I was even born. So we kind of knew then that, oh, this isn't the normal aging process that we were kind of suggesting maybe it was. Maybe it's something much more serious than that. And so that was the beginning of our journey. And I often talk to people, and for myself included, I think the transition is the hardest time, when you're becoming aware, when you don't have things in place, you're not sure what's going to happen next. And I think that's a really particularly difficult time for people to struggle with as they get used to this diagnosis and then decide how to take care of them. And for my family, it was particularly hard because my dad was very proud, and they were both elderly, and he had physical problems and she had Alzheimer's. And so I think that's when her care was lacking maybe the most. And, I would drive there, and every time she was panicked, we lived just down the road, but it was hard. And part of that sandwich generation, I had young kids at home, and I often thought if I could just move them into my house, but my dad was unwilling. It would be a little easier. I can make her doctors near me. Instead, I was working all day, running to their house, taking them to doctors, taking them back, getting them their dinner, taking it back, then driving home at night, and missing my kids. So that balance, as everybody else knows out there dealing with it, was particularly hard. When my dad passed away, my mom moved in with us, and I was very close to both my parents, so that was of course horrible. But that's, I think her care actually improved when she moved in with me, because we just dealt with it. We just, I think my dad was a little reticent to have any help, but he wasn't able to do it all by himself. Nobody can. I hear people, and when I aired my story, I talked to a lot of people on Facebook that do this all by themselves, and I can't imagine. It's a 24/7 job. And I was still working, as you mentioned, at the time. So what we did is my sisters and brothers tried to pitch in here and there. And we were lucky enough to be able to hire someone to help during the day when I was at work. And so that was a great help. But really, it took all of the kids, my husband, me, and my brothers and sisters, plus the person we hired for when I was at work, just to care for my mom. And you couldn't let her out for a minute out of your sight. Even if one of us had to go to the bathroom, we had to wait. Kids, can you watch grandma? I just have to run to the bathroom real quick. What started off as forgetful transitioned, and she was really eager to leave our house constantly. She wanted to go back to her home, which didn't exist anymore, with her mom. Her mom was waiting for her, she would say. And so she constantly would either sneak out, and we had to run after her. And she's very able. We joked because I couldn't keep up there. I'd have to kick off my shoes and go running down the street, just to catch up with her. We would take that loop day and night, rain or shine, because she just was insistent to walk home. We learned a lot of things along the way of that, of course. And one of them took me a while, which was that you really shouldn't argue with someone who has Alzheimer's, who's in a different reality. You need to divert, always divert. But that's hard to do, and they're not making any sense. And they're saying, I need to get to my babies. How do you say, no, let's have tea. Don't worry about the babies. Of course she's going to worry about the babies, so it's not as easy as the books tell you. But we did learn to kind of do just that, and had picture books where we looked back and talked about different things that she did remember that she enjoyed. And we would do that. We would have a lot of tea because that made her happy, a lot of diversion. It's a shame that she was in the home with their grandkids she loved so much, but they were a source of anxiety for her a lot because the fuss and the muss and the after school busyness was a little too much for her. And she couldn't articulate that, of course. So we had to learn to almost read the tea leaves and figure out what grandma really meant, but at one minute she would be happy with them. And the next minute she was accusing them of stealing her clothes. And little Kevin, who was playing with toys, she would say, that's my husband's. She wanted us out of her house. And of course, she was never like that when she was, in her full mind. So it was particularly hard on all of us. But one thing we tried to do is laugh off as much as we can. You're either going to laugh or you're going to cry. And in our house, we try to do a lot of laughing. So, she would do a lot of things where she'd say, how do you think I feel having you live in my house and eat my food and you're not leaving? And she'd say, what do you say to that, Karen? And I would say, sorry, mommy. You don't really know what to do. So, you can laugh or cry, but it was so hard, obviously, to see somebody struggle with something so great. And she did it with such grace. And you mentioned something that I shared it because I felt like we needed to. And I really felt like I needed to actually see what it looked like. I was reading books with different, families that have gone through it, or advice books from doctors, but I don't know, there's something visual and kind of seeing somebody go through it. And I was desperate to find that. When you have a child, you have quite a sense of what the next year, when they're doing the terrible twos, 3.5, things are going to get a little better. And at 4, they're going to go to school. What's the plan for somebody who needs 24/7 care and you don't know when it's bad enough that they need to move out of your home, or, when you can leave them alone for a second? We actually had alarms all over the doors, alarms in addition to our doors and windows. We had them on her bedroom door. So as soon as she got out of bed at night, we would race to her for fear she'd fall down the steps or, set the house on fire making tea, So we really lived on edge day and night. And at the same time, I often thought, it's hard to say it was a beautiful thing because it was hard, and it was hard to see someone you love struggle, but I felt like it was my mom's last lesson to us to learn. She taught us great patience and faith and living in the moment, which in this day and age, nobody does, myself included, but you had to. You could never ask mom, how was your day? I mean, that would be really a difficult question, because she had no idea. She'd stop and say, well, oh my God, I don't even know what I did today. Why don't I know what I did today? That would be upsetting. So you literally can't even ask what happened 5 minutes ago. You can only be in the moment. Oh, look at the sun shining. Don't you like it when the sun shines? And let's look at this picture. Let's sit down and have tea. But, you can't, you could kind of ask questions well in the past about her mom and dad at times. She was good with that, but not always. But it was such a process. I mean, there were times when she first moved in with me that that she would have really lucid moments. And I treasured those times there. You know, like I would tell her she had Alzheimer's. Like she would kind of come out of it for 5 minutes. It's hard to explain, but that's something I didn't read a lot about in the books. But yeah, so she would ask me and I would tell her, you know, at first it was about her husband dying that she didn't quite believe, or and I had to go through that and explain to her, yes, he passed and you're living here now. And I remember one very lucid moment when she looked at me and said that's not right. You need to take care of your family. I can't be living here with you. And I said, Mom, it's the joy of my life to care for you. And it is a great lesson for my children. And they are really great people, I think, in part. Because really we spent our whole life caring for her in different ways, whether it was just visiting when she was completely fine, you know, bringing dinners and such, or when she was incapacitated, you know, and I think that's part. It's a hard thing for them to have to see the hard times, but the lessons I think are good ones. So there's a lot she taught us through her very brave and very graceful struggle. I think now would be a good time if you can share with people the one piece that I did for ABC, where I really think that was one of the hardest things I did, but I think it was really good to show people the reality of Alzheimer's, if you want to try airing that right now.
Special report on living with someone suffering from Alzheimer's disease.
Karen's here to share a glimpse of her own personal journey with her mother.
And you know, whenever I share stories with my mom on Facebook, I'm always surprised just how many people out there are in the same situation, and we all feel so alone. So I'm hoping that in sharing our stories, sharing information, we could all kind of help each other.
So I decided to make a video blog so we can kind of see what things are like. Do you know what year it is by any chance?
No.
Take a guess. 1888? Live close to that.
My mom has Alzheimer's, but she's still vibrant and witty. She moved in with us after my dad passed nearly 2 years ago. We get lots of help from family and friends, and one of her favorite pastimes is looking at our family's scrapbook. When she forgets who we are, we usually just laugh it off.
That's me. It's okay. No big deal. I'm your youngest. I'm right there.
Oh, I'll be darned.
But some days are harder than others.
Well, I'm gonna go home. We had things to do with Daddy. I forget what I had to do.
First, we're gonna have dinner, then we'll go home.
No, I can't do that to my family. Leave, I'm the only one that's cooking.
We're not gonna go to your mom's house right now.
Yeah, but I am. I don't deal like that. I'm ready. I'm tired. I want to go home.
We're constantly heading out to make Mom happy. It turns out this is a common problem. Julie Thomas from the Alzheimer's Association says to analyze what's happening before she gets anxious.
If you can recognize what that is and kind of redirect the person ahead of time and try to get them engaged in something before the anxiety builds up, then I think that's helpful.
And she warns not to isolate them.
Having interactions with people are really what keep us vital and engaged in life.
My kids really have a special way of reaching my mom. On one particularly rough day, my oldest just broke out into song.
On the marble arch, and love is not a victory march. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah.
I've watched that video 1,000 times, and it's the face of my mom at the end that truly gives me peace.
Seeing my mom's face right there. And you know, I hear so much from people that you think, you know, this problem is unique to you, but it surprised me for that expert to tell me that that problem I have with my mom trying to leave all the time is really common. So what she says is to analyze what happens beforehand and try to avoid it. For us, the trigger was the commotion and noise when the kids are coming home from school. So now we try to sit with the scrapbook, we try to have tea, and she says really engage with her, and that's what can help keep the stress out. But they're available 24/7, our local Alzheimer's Association. I've called them, I'm gonna be live live on Facebook at 7:30, and we're going to try to help people and answer some of your questions. I've got some more tips that the expert gave us.
I think you will, because, I mean, particularly that moment at the end of the video when your daughter was singing, she truly was happy.
calming her
And
down.
So happy.
That's really worth
And
it,
I'm not
right?
kidding, minutes ago, she was like, no, I'm leaving. I got to go to my mom. So it's amazing how quickly you can turn it around.
I just want to say you did a beautiful job of showing people day to day what it was like, and connecting with them, showing them that they're not alone, and giving them some ideas. So I'm so proud of you. You are such a wonderful person and daughter.
Thank you.
So thank you.
They will thank you too, and I know they will on Facebook. Thanks, Karen.
I hope that kind of gave people a good idea of the ups and downs. It's so nice for me to see the happy moments with mom, because there were lots of them, but she was feisty, man. And not before Alzheimer's, but just after, as anybody would, with this frustration of what am I doing here? And I feel so guilty when she just wanted to leave, but like, what are you going to do? You're trying to cook dinner for the family. You're trying to feed the kids. You got to do a little bit of both. So that was particularly hard. And after living with us for about 2 years, we kind of made the move and decided it was time to find a place for mom to get better care. And she did break out one time. I had to get all new regulations after mom moved in, because if anybody, we used to joke, if any organization wanted to find the flaws in their security system, I'll drop mom off for an hour and you'll find them real quick. So yeah, there was a little break in the system and she got out, but after that, not. But we would visit every day, just about, and try to keep her company. And she really was more settled there than I ever would imagined. I hear horror stories of people have such a hard time when their parents are somewhat aware and they move them. Sometimes that's a hard thing, because sometimes the parents are upset. My mom at that point had no idea she moved. She didn't know she ever lived with me. She didn't know she wasn't living with me then. So the moving wasn't really an issue in that way. It was just another adaptation. But oddly enough, she seemed really happy there, because I think in our house, I think it was the commotion of children. And my mom was somebody who had 10 kids. She wept after she had me, knowing that she wasn't going to have another baby in the house. At that point she was 40. And it's funny to think, but so somebody who loves and lives for children wasn't able to really live with them well in her state. I think it just made her a little frazzled, a lot going on in the house. And somehow I think being around older people, although she still wanted to leave all the time, she was a little bit more settled, because there was a little calmness to the center where we moved her. We've got another video that I think is funny, showing some of the lighter sides. And I really, in some of these videos, I'm quizzing her just to show viewers the extent of her issues, but that wasn't something we did, regularly. We didn't try to put her on the spot. But I visited her one time on my birthday when she was living in her home, and she had a reaction that I still talk about. So take a look at this one too.
Is that me?
Yeah, look at me. So Mom, I'm going to be 48 years old.
That's old.
It's old. Thank you very
Is
much.
it really?
For real, that's how old I am.
I'm not going to ask you how old I am. I
old-
have no idea.
How old do you think you are?
Less than 50, I know that.
Yes, you're definitely younger than me.
Okay, so that's not bad.
At least you got that going for
Yeah.
you. Because 48's pretty old.
Is that what yours is?
Yeah. Do you think that's old?
Yeah. It's not young.
Thanks, Mom. Appreciate
Now,
that.
was mine old or what?
You're not that old.
Okay. Oh,
You're funny, Mom.
My friends had a field day with that one. One, though, on a note, you can kind of see she really didn't remember, just that might have been 30 seconds ago, that I had told her something. But the reason I started doing that video, I was just visiting her, but I started videoing it because she told me the first time, it was my birthday. I was visiting her for my birthday. She told me she didn't even know anybody that old. She didn't know anybody could be that old. So that's a movie video. I thought, oh, this is going to be one to remember for sure. My friend told me his favorite part of that video was the relief in her face at the end when I told her she wasn't as old as me. She's like, thank God. That would be terrible. So you can see we had a lot of fun with it. And it was a little easier. I shouldn't say that. It's all hard. But I think I was able to enjoy her a little bit more without the stress of being fully responsible for her care. And if I'm going to be honest, that almost broke me. I've done a lot in my life. I had foster children, but it's just something you can't blink an eye about when you're caring for someone. And I think of everybody who they don't have big families. I don't know how they do it. I mean, and if they don't have the money to try to go to some, put her in a place or find a good home for her, I mean, it's just unbearably difficult. I remember being at work one time. My husband likes to tell a story where he went and checked on her and she was still sleeping. So he left the door cracked open, which, to be honest, he shouldn't have done because that meant the alarm wasn't properly on in her bedroom. So anyway, he ran into the basement for a second, was having his coffee in the kitchen, and it was a pouring cold rain on a windy, miserable winter day. We have a little window at our kitchen that looks out to the street. And he's looking and he's like, God, I see this old lady walking in the rain. That's crazy. And he's like, Mom! And he's running. He's like, Karen's gonna kill me. He's literally running. And she's just like, she had nothing but her nightgown and a towel around her head. And she's like, I gotta go, Kev, gonna see Mom. And he's like, no, come home. She's like, no, I really got. I mean, she was determined. She was fighting through the rain and the wind. So that gives you a sense of what she was willing to do to leave our house. But she did keep us laughing a lot. I would love to know if Robin or anybody out there has any questions that I can kind of help guide you with.
First, Karen, thank you so much for not only for sharing your story, but being brave enough to really paint us this picture, right? Because so many people probably listening right now are going through this, are feeling this, and just you sharing is really just a blessing. No other word for that.
Thank you.
Logistical reminder, feel free to use the Q&A to ask any questions. And I know Robin definitely has some and I have some. So if we find a few minutes, but Robin,
I'd be very happy to. I feel less emotional after I got through the hard part, so I'm okay.
I think I'm getting lots of texts that everybody else is incredibly emotional right now.
Oh,
So
good. I'm not alone. My hand's at least not shaking. I can drink my water now, but I'm still teary-eyed.
No, I have 3 people telling me they need tissues. So, Robin, why don't you start us off a little bit?
One question I had, and I think we do get quite often, is how did you tell your children that you were noticing that your mom had Alzheimer's, and how did you still engage them in the relationship with your mom, but obviously the cognitive impairment was becoming more increased?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because somebody who hasn't had this experience told me that they wouldn't want their children around and some people are like that. They want to protect their children. I've always been completely open with my kids, and they've always been a part of grandmom's life. So we never really had to sit down and have a talk, because we would visit her twice a week at least, and they were just part of the ongoing change. So there was never a time where, when you go to visit grandma, there's, that would be the case if you live far away, I think. But for us, they're very, very close to their grandma. And so it was all just an evolution without a big sit down talk. But it was always important for me. I never protected them from their grandma. I would have talks with them, however, about, I know it's hard when grandma yells, because they've never experienced. I mean, my mom was always the kind, like, how many cookies could I possibly give you when you're here? Like, she never would dream of yelling at the kids or anything like that. Like, she was just the biggest softie in the world. Even to me growing up, she was, but certainly to my children, a doting grandma kind of thing. So for them suddenly to see she's upset with them, she's yelling at them, that it took some talking to about that. And we were just really open, all the time when it happened. We would talk about it and we would discuss it. So it wasn't really like one big talk, because they were such a part of her life. But even my little guy, who was so young at the time, you know, he's 13 now, and so he was 3 when she got diagnosed. So he really didn't know her, not with Alzheimer's, really. So I guess that's part of the reason it wasn't a big conversation. He's so good now with elderly people. We visit my aunt a lot, and he's always wanting to hold her hand and be careful when you walk, and he really has an understanding. And I think we've kind of talked a lot about how you should relate this to all people. You don't know what somebody's going through. If they say something crazy to you, we can only control our reaction to that, you know. And that would be something you really had to do with mom. Like, you had to be very neutral in your face. It sounds crazy, but like, she was so perceptive. For someone with Alzheimer's, she can tell if you were lying literally by looking at you. Like, you had to be good. So if you were going to say, yes, we're going to visit mom, we're going to visit mom tomorrow, you had to look like you weren't unsure about it, or she would really not believe you. But we've taught the kids a lot about how not to react to emotional situations, how to stay calm in emotional situations, how to see through if somebody's yelling and maybe see what they really need. And they were amazingly perceptive at this. My daughter Jennifer is a little bit more on the quiet side. You wouldn't know. Like, Catherine was the one in the singing video, was always singing to her and doing big demonstrative things. Jen was the quiet one who secretly knew all the right meds she had to get when she had to get them. One point we were in the nursing home, and I know we shouldn't call it that anymore, assisted living facility, and grandma was horribly upset. And I didn't, you know, I was trying to protect the kids at that moment. There didn't seem to be a need. I said, go, kids, you go and sit in the front, and I'm going to bring her out to you after I calm her down, and we'll have tea together. And my Jennifer said to me, no, you shouldn't walk her through down the hallway. She'll be more upset. You should take her to her room. We'll have tea there. And I was like, you are absolutely right. She was a kid. I mean, like, they learn. So I would suggest to people, never fear exposing your children. Just talk them through it. They're learning. And frankly, I'm learning from them.
Are so perceptive.
You know, people would say, oh, you would have a bad memory of your parents, of your grandparents. They don't have bad memories of that. We joke and we laugh and we remember this time, you know, we joke about little things. And I would thought maybe my youngest would have remembered her yelling, because she adored him to no end, because she loves baby and he was the baby of my family. But when she got bad, she would yell at him the most because he was the one causing commotion or playing. And he never speaks of that. Doesn't seem to be an issue, you know, with him. He just kind of got it that great. And I would always kind of be on his side. Like, I would say things like, Kev, go use the other stairwell to get around so grandma doesn't see you playing. Play with your friend in the basement for a little bit. So I think that kind of helped him, that we had a plan together.
Well, to continue our emotional ride, we have a few questions from everyone joining us today. The first one is,
I'm glad people can join in.
Yes. The first one is from Megan. So first, she just wants to thank you. She Facebook's messages you questions, and you answer them all the time. And she wants to say thank you for your advice. And her background is that her mom is in her end stages. And she doesn't eat much anymore, doesn't communicate, and is no longer walking. Do you have any advice for her? And maybe Karen and Robin might have some advice as they go through the final stages together. They used to laugh a lot and be silly, like you mentioned with your mom, but that doesn't exist anymore. So Karen, if you want to share, and Robin, if you want to actually jump in with that also.
Yeah, I haven't talked about I didn't talk about my mom passing or even mention she did, but she did pass a year ago. And the end stages for us moved very rapidly. I know that's not the case for everybody. We had a big 90th birthday party for her last summer, and she danced. And that was at the end of July, and she passed by the end of September. So those end stages were a roller coaster ride. All of a sudden she couldn't walk, and she never completely stopped talking. I know that's unusual. And I mean, well, she did obviously at the very end, but it wasn't long that she didn't speak. So perhaps I can't give as much experience, and Robin can more, but one thing I will tell you, and this is so personal that I probably shouldn't even say it, but I would like to share if it helps anybody. but she really had a beautiful passing, and that was important to me. And I kind of had a sense of what she needed. There were a lot of us there, and I think that was really good for her. And then there was a time when everybody left. It was just my husband and I. And I kind of had it in my head that she was waiting for some peace and quiet to pass, and not in front of everybody. Sometimes they like everybody, and sometimes they say they don't. And we, it was my husband's idea, read from his old family Bible. And I think it helped her in the very end that we were not staring at her, watching her breathing and counting her breaths, because she was frequently, looking like it was the end. And I felt like that might be too much attention on her. And we were focused completely on something else. And because she was very religious, I think this really helped her. And we played music. We had a lot of music. And because she was religious, we all, before my family left, and a number of times, we said the rosary together, we did different, and she wasn't, part of that at that point. But I think that made her happy. My husband, who is pretty great, before I know I'm going back and forth, but before everyone left at the end, he packed us all lunches, and on these lunch bags, he wrote questions with the kids, like, what was the best meal your mom made? What was the happiest Christmas that you had? And we were all like chatting about that. And I thought, while in her room, and I thought, oh, she must really love that. Who doesn't want to see your kids happily chatting with each other, reminiscing about all the beautiful things, she created with her love. But music was a big part of the end for us. And we played, since she's religious, we played, songs of Hail Mary and various things. And I think that made it the best end that it could. I don't have a lot of experience, and maybe Robin can talk more about the process leading up to that, since for us that was mercifully quick.
I think for everybody, the experience is extremely different, and how it happens. But the two things that I truly feel are important, one being music, which is what Karen said. I've experienced, people in their very end stages. And so my thought is to always put music on, because it not only keeps the individual calm as they're about to pass away, or if they're in the end stages, but it keeps the family calm. It gives a peace for everybody, whether it's a song from, some people like, old time Frank Sinatra or something of that nature, or it could be something just soothing from, a Broadway show, but it brings the family together, and it does result in a calm place for everybody, because I think a lot of it is that we, the individuals watching our loved one go through something like this, is feeling unsettling and uncalm. And for us to feel a sense of calm along with that person is so invaluable. And the other thing is not to remember that the personal touch, meaning, holding their hand. They may not be able to say to you, I know exactly who you are because I can say your name or something like that, or they may be really fading, falling asleep and not able to stay awake, but they feel your hand. They feel your heartbeat. You can hug, you can touch, and there's nothing like having your hand held, and they need that security, because they may not be able to tell you, but they're scared too at times. So it's obviously, this is not anybody's choice to go through this, but don't forget the personal touch. Just hold their hand, squeeze their hand, let them know you're there, and that you're not leaving them, that you're going to protect them, and you're going to be there with them till the end. That's really what it's about. So the songs, the music, the peace, it's just bringing peace across the board for everybody, and just knowing that you're in this together, and that you're gonna get through it. But I really believe that the personal touch, people get scared that they don't want to hurt somebody by touching them, or they need that. They feel it. They truly do. So.
Yeah. And I just saw Denise popped up with a comment that, oh, I definitely played the music for my mom and that helped. And I wanted to thank Megan for all of her Facebook comments and for sharing that thought with us as well.
We have a few more Q&A we will try and get to, but I definitely want to appreciate, Karen, all the time you've already spent with us today.
No problem.
So first, Nicole kind of would love a little bit more detail. You shared about the very beginning stages with your dad and how he really cared for her until sort of the mid-maybe stages. What signs did you notice during that very early stage that where your dad would say, it's fine, it's okay? Because I think that's probably really where we want to, yeah. And then Robin
I
also.
think, yeah, sure. I'll comment quick and let Robin explain more. I'm not usually somebody who's in denial, but it was really my sister Terry who was better at picking up the little things than I was. I think it's because I'm always an optimist, and my answer was always, "Oh, they're fine," until we're sure they're not. But one thing I will say is there was a sense of anxiety that really ramped up before I understood what was behind it. And maybe it was I'm sure Robin would know much more than me. This is just as a layman. Maybe it was anxiety of her being confused more. And I will say that we waited a long time to go to a doctor because it just seemed like a regular elderly process. But it was very helpful to our family when my mom went on, I don't remember the kind, but an anti-anxiety or stress medicine, because she was full of anxiety that she didn't used to feel. But it was helpful for her to get some relief from that. And maybe Robin can explain that more.
I think in general, to be honest with you, families, it's not uncommon to be in denial. I mean, we all want to be in denial of anything that occurs that we think we're not going to bring our minds to think, oh, I think they're starting to have, a cognitive impairment or something of that nature. Somebody one time told me, because we all forget where we park at a mall, right? Or we all forget where we park when we go somewhere that's a large parking lot. We're going to forget where we parked, and that's a normal occurrence. But it's when somebody doesn't remember how they got to the mall. When somebody did they take the train, or did they take the subway, or did they take a car, a taxi? What was it? When they start having, those much bigger issues as far as not knowing how they got somewhere, those are the signs. But the truth is as a family member, and when you watch a loved one go through this, you don't want to believe that it's happening, so there is a sense of denial, and that's always going to be a period of that denial. And when you have a couple, you will also find that the spouse will try to compensate for the other, because they don't want anybody else to see it, because they don't want anybody else to bring it up, because then you're making it real. And so the more they overcompensate for the individual suffering from Alzheimer's, the more that they can protect them, and nobody else will address it, because once somebody addresses it, it's now the reality, and that's scary to people. So I just think that everybody has different signs, and some people could have some forgetfulness, and then it takes years for really active dementia to occur. But I do think that we all try to overcompensate, and I think that that's normal. We don't want to see it happen.
Yeah, so this will be our last audience question from Joyce, and she's really reaching out because she's going right through this right now with her best friend of 60 years. Beautiful, first of all, Joyce, that you have a best friend for 60 years. She just, I guess probably was diagnosed last year or started last year. Joyce sees her, she knows it's happening, and she tries to talk to her every day and see her. She's spoken to me about her parents. She wants to know, really, she's asking very technical. She gets 10 phone calls a day, starts afternoon into the late evening. She's asking what is next to expect, but also if you have any other, advice and connection for Joyce here.
Well, Joyce, first off, just thank you for caring for your friend so much, and thank you for joining into this. And we're sorry for what you're going through. I had forgotten this, but my mom was still, we got her back in touch when she moved into my house with an old friend from elementary school that she hadn't seen in many decades. And to our shock and amazement, she remembered her, loved talking to her. So you might just be the highlight of your friend's day. And they used to get together and have lunch all the time. And it always cracked us up, like be talking about life in Camden back in, I don't even know when, 1940. I'm not sure when that was. Like, it's crazy. But she loved it and remembered her. I mean, I think up until her 90th birthday, which is right before she passed, like, so that was really important for her to remember those. She remembered those times more than, any of the more recent times. So I don't have any technical advice for you, but I can only say that I think your love and your friendship matters. And the other thing I would mention is, even at some point when she doesn't know you, she would have that feeling about my husband a lot. She didn't know my husband as much as she knew me. I'm grateful she knew me most of the time. Not really. She would fake it if she didn't. She sometimes called me her sister, and I'd be like, oh, she's been pretending this whole time that she knows who I am, But she said one time about my husband, back before she even moved with me, so she had been pretty, I guess, far gone now. And she said, I don't remember who you are, but I know that I like you. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing to say, and something we kind of always hung on to, that more than remembering, even if she wasn't sure if I was his sister, her aunt, I'm sure she thought I was an older sister, by the way, but it didn't so much matter. We still had great visits. I didn't even realize till the end when she introduced me as her older sister that, she didn't know who I was. It's kind of the love, I think, that comes through, and the camaraderie. I think she'll still have that feeling towards you. So even if she doesn't remember you, no, I think that she's really valuing that time together.
So, one, thank you again, and thank you to everybody. We are going to pass all of, there's so many comments and feedbacks and people who knew you and want to share their love for you. So we will pass all of that on to you.
Please do. I'm not sure if I know how to respond on
I will email it all to you. Do not worry.
Okay. And if I just want.
Oh, we lost you for a second, Karen.
You're muted.
Let's see. No, you're muted.
Sorry. I won't touch it again, I swear. But if anyone wants to go to my Facebook page too, I can answer you specifically there as well. But I thank you. Sorry with my messing with my phone there.
I think if we could leave on a, I don't know if this is a positive note, but you talked a lot about your laughing, and you mentioned you're part of the sandwich generation, and you are caring for your own your children and your family as well as your mother. Can you share a little bit of self-care tips, advice? What did you do for you?
That's a very good question. And maybe you can share some of the pictures if you haven't already, because I thought they were cute to show as I chat about that. But I'm the last person to ask about self-care. That's not my best. That's a great picture of my mom and I like to go to the beach. And so I would get help sometimes on the weekend and go to the beach because that's my happy place. So that was really joyous time for me. Simple things like I realized I need sleep. So I would that's part of our laughing, right? How much are we laughing there? That was at mom's home, shortly before she passed. And we were having a good laugh about something or other, probably about how old I was. But yeah, I think any little bit you can help. But the one thing I would definitely recommend is sleep. I would ask for help and get people to come over. I mean, my job is weird. I get up at 1 a.m, so sleep is a struggle for me. But I know because of that, the value of sleep. And if you are a caretaker, it may sound silly, like the biggest thing you could do is sleep. But if you could make sure you try to get some sleep, I think that resets your brain a lot, and your body really needs it. So for me, it's the shore, and getting whatever help you can so you could get a little rest.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karen, Robin, and everyone who just joined in. Like I said, we will pass all of it on to Karen and to Robin also. And Karen offered to reach out through Facebook, and you could always reach out to Aleph. Everyone will get a follow-up with how to reach out, and it is also put in the chat. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this morning, and wishing you a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you all.
Thank you both for organizing it, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Robin, too. You did such a great job.
Karen. I really appreciate it. Your story really has touched so many people, and thank you. And thanks for speaking about your mom. She was a beautiful woman, just like you are. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.